Good day, everyone. Can everybody see me and can everybody hear me? Can everybody see me and can everyone hear me? All right. Without further ado, my name is Fabian Tamele, and I'll be the one taking you through this revision webinar. Right. This is a revision webinar, so just trying to prep you for the exam as swiftly as we possibly can. I hope your assignment results are not too bad, and excuse me, I'll just basically do a sweep through key parts of your syllabus, key parts of your textbook. It's 10 chapters, so it's quite some work, but at the same time, not too bad. Not too bad being 10 chapters. You need to understand what economics is all about, particularly economics 1 in this case. There are a couple of key topics that you need to be able to understand, accompany from beginning to the end. Okay, I'm just going to go through the thing quickly first before I get started. What I'm going to do, I'm going to brush through every chapter. Right? Let's see what can be done in 2 hours. Okay, let's see what can be done in 2 hours. The chapters that are a bit detailed, so I don't want to get too caught up in covering too much detail that I don't finish everything. Let me see, but I'm sure we can brush through everything in like all the chapters. Now, chapter 1 and chapter 2 are sort of introductory chapters. Okay? They're introductory chapters. If you have a paper and a pen, please take as much notes as I speak. That would be good for you. Okay? You will be able to download this webinar. I'm going to find out how long that might take, so that you can actually listen to it over and over. Right? The slides are coming through. So yes, do accompany me. You guys will be able to see this on your side as well. Now, chapter 1 and 2 are basic. They're introductory chapters. They're basically just introducing you to the concept of economics and what it's all about. Chapter 2 is highly important. It has a lot of detail, particularly about the macroeconomic objectives and going into the detail of each of those objectives, starting with economic growth and working your way through to the balance of payments and inequality. All right. Chapter 3, 4, and 5 are all looking at the Keynesian model. So in this case, we're basically focusing on the Keynesian model and bringing in the different players into the Keynesian model. Okay. We start with the simple Keynesian model, which is just households and firms, and then we introduce the government, and then we introduce the foreign sector at the end. And then that's it with the Keynesian model. After that, we get to look at chapter 7, which is another version of modeling, the economy basically. The ADAS framework. Okay, you need to understand that too. It's different from the Keynesian model. It drops a couple of assumptions that the Keynesian model has. It takes on a different approach, but they're all doing the same thing. It's models of how the economy works. That's chapter 7. And then chapter 6, 8, 9, and 10 are simply expanding on 1 and 2 topics. 6 actually is just focusing on the monetary sector and monetary policy. While it's 8, 9, and 10, or 8 and 9 are focusing on other macroeconomic objectives that are mentioned in chapter 2. Okay, so they expand on inflation and they expand on unemployment, those 2 chapters. And then you have your chapter 10, which wraps everything up, of business cycles and how to measure economic growth. Well, we're looking at GDP, but just examining it a bit further again. Well, let's get started then. Let's start from the very beginning, where we ask the simplest question of all. What is economics? Okay. I'm not going to have a Q&A at the end of the session, so hit me with questions as I go along. I can read everything that you guys say there, and I can respond to it as I go along. Okay. So this is a tutorial, but at the same time a Q&A at the same time. So don't wait until the end to ask me questions. Ask questions, please. I'd appreciate those questions. You guys are the ones writing this exam, so definitely make sure you're as comfortable as you possibly can. You know. All right, chapter 1. Like I said, the most basic question of all. I'm not going to be covering everything in the slides. Okay. Some of the stuff I'll just sweep through. All right. For the sake of time and the size of your syllabus here, 10 chapters is quite a lot. Well, quite a lot to just talk through in 2 hours. Okay. So economics is about choice. Well, it's about scarcity. Okay. The scarcity is simply the fact that we don't have enough resources to address all our needs on planet Earth. We're too many people, first of all, and our resources are only limited with so much land, so much water, so much fresh water, so much minerals, so much oil. So it's all those things actually. So much people that can actually work. So many entrepreneurs. We've got a limited number of everything that we need in order to make business work. We're only so much access to capital. So much access to money that can help us obtain that capital. Companies are busy going in different exchanges around the world to try and seek that capital because we only have so much of it. So economics is about scarcity. It's about the fact that it is not enough to address all our needs, and for that reason we need to make choices. We need to choose between A and B because we cannot choose both A and B. And when we choose, we then lose something whenever we give up one option for another, and that's called the opportunity cost. Okay, so essentially it says it's the benefit that you lose, it's the benefit forgone every time that you pick one option over another. You're going to lose out on something else. Does the government chase to bring down unemployment or fight inflation? When you bring down unemployment, you basically you stimulate the economy, and make people have more money and there's more production, and so our companies can employ. And when that happens, on the other hand, spending skyrockets, and that pushes prices up, bringing you what you call that, inflation, raising the cost of living. Okay, let's fight inflation. In fighting inflation, we need to slow the economy down, and slowing the economy down, what's going to happen? You're going to find yourself creating unemployment as well. So these are opportunity costs that we're talking about. As you jump from one decision to another, you've got to always be making sacrifices in terms of the options you're going to pick. So that's economics in a nutshell, literally, and everything is built upon exactly what I just said right now. We distinguish between macro and microeconomics. What you're studying here, this module, is about macroeconomics. So macroeconomics focuses on the bigger picture. It focuses on on the economy as a whole. So we're looking at aggregates. We look at unemployment and the unemployment rate and measuring unemployment. We look at inflation. We don't look at the price of bread, which is one item in the economy, but instead we look at inflation and the effects of inflation on the people of the country, on society, and how to measure inflation, which is the CPI, Consumer Price Index. We look at GDP, which is gross domestic output, gross domestic product. GDP is the output of a whole country in 1 year. We don't look at the output of an industry or the output of a particular company, in this case, Talk or ESCO. So this is what happens. In macroeconomics, we're looking at aggregates. I like to call it, we're looking at aggregates, big parts of the economy. While this microeconomics sort of zones in and looks at singular parts of the economy. So we're going to look at just demand and supply, and study what influences one's demand for bread. What makes them want more bread or less bread. We're going to look at a company in a perfect competition situation, or in an oligopoly or something. What exactly makes that company have more output or less output? What drives output in a particular single company? What drives costs in a single company? These are microeconomic issues. You guys will proceed to Economics 2 after this subject, after this module, and that is macroeconomics. Micro, I mean to say. You'll be looking at all these issues, singular parts of the economy. Look at the labor market, for example, just labor. What drives the labor market? Stuff like that. Let's keep going. We talk of something very important in economics, which is the fact that everything that is produced in an economy is produced with the aim of generating income, and that income is spent. In a perfect economy, that income is spent on what actually has been produced. I don't know if that is making sense. So we can literally have what we call a circular flow of production and spending, where everything that is produced is sold, and it's sold so that it can generate an income. And that income is then spent on everything that was produced at the end of the day. And basically it induces more production. You know what I mean? So basically in a perfect scenario, all production is equal to all the income, equal to all the spending in the economy. So we talk of the circular flow of production, income, and spending, and we say the economy is at equilibrium when all these three are basically equal to each other. I want us to address each of these factors one at a time. Okay, each of these elements. So let's start off there with production. Production, in this case, is the actual output and of companies in the economy. In order for that to happen, you need the factors of production, which is your natural resources. Natural resources is anything that nature basically offers us, primarily land, water, and the likes. You need labor, you need manpower, you need capital, which basically is sort of access to finance or the actual infrastructure that you use as a company in order to produce output, such as the factory plant, such as machinery and equipment and vehicles and stuff like that. And then, of course, you need the entrepreneur, the person, the individual who's going to come and put all these above factors together and take the risk and have the vision to actually create a winning enterprise. That's what you need in order for production to take place. We produce and then we sell everything in order to do what? To produce an income. That income is basically the remuneration to all the factors of production that have been in place in order for this to be taking place. So natural resources need to be remunerated. Whoever is providing you with natural resources, you're going to pay rent back to them. Whoever is providing you with labor, you're going to pay them wages and salaries. Whoever is providing you with money in order for you to obtain infrastructure, you're going to pay interest to. And whatever is left as the entrepreneur, you're going to basically collect as profit. So this is what we mean when we say that everything produced in an economy is produced with the aim of generating an income. And spending, last but not least, is basically what we do with that income is spend it. Right? So when everybody gets remunerated, spending starts to take place. Spending is the driver of economic activity in a country. So it's actually very key. Who are the spenders? That's basically the question that you're asking here. And in this case, you got households first. When they spend, we call it consumption spending. This is household spending in the economy. Then you got firms. Firms also spend, and when firms spend, we call it investment spending. Okay, when firms spend, and then you have the government. it also spends, and that's called government spending. You know, all of this is spending taking place within the economy. We're spending the income that we've earned from the production that is taking place. If you want people to have money to spend, there must be income that is generated, and income will only be generated when production is taking place in the economy. In terms of the foreign sector as well, whatever we do not, our excess production, we like to export it, right? And we export it to our trading partners, and those are called exports. They bring money into the economy, and you have imports as well, because we don't always have everything, so we bring in some stuff from the outside. That's money leaving the economy. So in terms of spending, we're going to consider exports because other people are spending on our output. There's money coming into the system, and we subtract the inputs because we're spending that on other people's goods instead, other people's production. Sorry, I mean other countries' production. Okay, so exports minus imports, basically, to the foreign sector in this case. Know your symbols. Okay, let's put everything in perspective. There you go. There you got it. You got your production there and all the factors that need to be present in order for production to take place, and your income, which is whatever remuneration is generated as a result of the factors of production that were there, and leading to spending in the economy. Once again, spending is the driver of economic activity. Are we clear? You want a country to grow, induce spending. Okay, induce spending. Cool stuff. Well, let's keep going. Let's focus on households and let's focus on firms and let's see how they interact. Okay. Sadly, this is not a classroom, so I don't have a board to be drawing up graphs and stuff. So I will theoretically just try and explain what's going on as much as I can. Okay. But I think anyway, with what I'm discussing, it's going to help you in terms of relating to the graphs best you can. So firms and households interact through two markets, the goods market and the factor market. Okay. And of course, the names speak for themselves. What is the factor market? It's a market where factors of production are sold. Okay. So factor market doesn't actually have a physical, location or anything, but maybe it does actually. It's everywhere and anywhere where there's exchange of factors of production from a buyer to a seller. So yeah, that'll be the factor market. The recruitment agency is an example of the factor market. They're providing labor. We're making labor available to those who request it, which is your firms in this case. So these factors of production moving from households to firms through the factor market, and firms take that and produce with it. That's what we were just discussing a moment ago. They manufacture goods and services and make those available back to households, to the goods market. The goods market is Pick n Pay and Spar and any other place in the country where we sell stuff. It can even be online. Wherever stuff is sold from firms to households, goods or services will then constitute a goods market. Okay. So that's your circular flow of goods and services, and then you've got your circular flow of income and spending. Of course, we're simply saying that. Look at that diagram there. Households are getting factors of production. Sorry, they're providing factors of production. They're not doing it for free. All right, so they're doing it in return for an income. So that's why you got an arrow then moving from the factor market to households, return income, because that's what households are doing for, and then they take that income and they spend it. They spend it where? The goods market. They take that income and they buy goods and services. So there's an arrow moving from households to the goods market, and firms participate in the goods market or provide goods and services to the goods market so that they can generate an income. They also don't do it for free. And they take that income and spend it on very effective production so that they can produce more. Making sense? Injections into the circular flow will be when firms spend. We call it investment. Investment simply means that, or capital formation. Okay, what is investment? When a firm spends, a firm is investing. Investing why? Because firms don't spend for fun. They spend with the intention of expanding, um, providing employment, providing opportunity. You know, so that's investment spending. Um, Government spending is also an injection, because it does the very same thing that investment spending does, even at a larger scale actually. Exports is other countries buying our stuff, so that injects money into the economy, like I said at the beginning. Imports, of course, becoming therefore a withdrawal or leakage from the economy, from the circular flow of income spending. Taxes bring down our disposable income. Uh, in the meantime. So they are a withdrawal, which actually later becomes an injection for government spending. Saving is also a withdrawal because whenever you take your money and you put it aside, you're doing it, with the intention of not spending it, so then it doesn't get reinjected into the economy. Actually, banks have a way of reinjecting our savings, so they take money from us in the form of deposits and make it available to firms in the form of loans. And when firms are borrowing from banks, they are trying to finance what? Investment spending. Investment spending, which I did say at the beginning, is an injection to the economy. Cool stuff. There you got your massive diagram, which is bringing together the circular flow of income and spending, circular flow of goods and services together. Only big difference here is therefore the government, which comes in the middle of the graph, to play the role that it plays there. The government taxes us. So you can see the arrows. They're like reddish or maroonish, guys and colors, right? Those arrows there are moving from firms to government, and moving from households to the government because the tax in this company tax and personal income tax. And then that's sent back basically to us again through a provision of public goods and services. The government is also, we say the government is a market participant, which means the government also likes to be in the market, doing its thing there. The government employs, just like firms employ. Actually, they're the biggest employer in the economy. So they take a lot of labor. They take a lot of, government rents land from numerous individuals around the country, stuff like that. So they use factors of production as well in order to do what it is that they do. And that's government spending going to the factory market. And government, needs coffee and tea and computers and cell phones in order for their employees to do what they do and for the departments to run. So government is always busy in the goods market buying stuff as well. Is that making sense? This is essentially the chapter, essentially. Right? Let's just put everything in a perspective. There is your government there. Government spending is going into the circular flow while it's taxation, which is represented by T, is moving away from the circular flow. Okay, being in leakage and an injection there, basically. The foreign sector, as you can see, exports are bringing money in, while the imports are sending it out. Done. Let's move to chapter 2 quickly. I'm going to start moving a bit faster now. I always like to take my time around basics because without the basics, you don't build up at all. So but I'm going to start switching gears now. There are 5 macroeconomic objectives, and there you got them. First one is economic growth. Second one is price stability, and then you got full employment as well. Then you got balance of payment stability and equitable distribution of income. And these are measured in various ways. I need you to know that. I need you to know how each of these factors is measured. So the first one is economic growth, and economic growth is measured through GDP, gross domestic product. It measures what? Economic growth. We're going to discuss that in such detail. It's not really fun. In just a moment. Full employment. Full employment is measured by actually looking at the unemployment rate. And then price stability is measured using the consumer price index, and external stability, which is balance of payments, we'll look at the financial account and the current account and stuff like that. Income distribution is measured through the Gini coefficient, the Lorenz curve, actually. Excuse me, the Lorenz curve. Yes, Lorenz curve. Cool. Let's go. Let's define GDP first. So we're looking at economic growth, and we measure it using GDP. How do we define GDP? Is the total value of all final goods and services manufactured within an economy within a year. Let's underline aspects of that definition, which is the first one is total value. What you see the saying there is we're talking about money. We do not literally count all the goods and services that have been produced in the country and together and that have this massive report, which is probably 5,000-page report, naming everything that has been produced in the country so that we can know the output of the country. No. Instead, we just record the prices of whatever has been produced in the country, and we obtain one number, which is then, in this case, the GDP, the output of that country. Does that make sense? It's expressed in monetary terms. Okay, GDP is expressed in monetary terms, which is quite a cool thing. So total value of all final goods and services. Final goods and services in this case is simply saying that we like to look at GDP right at the end point, which is the point at which it's sold to the final customer. Okay. That's actually called the expenditure method of calculating GDP. So maybe let me just jump there. Something like that. I don't know. Open your books. Let's go there to page. Let's go there to page. Come on now. Page 22. The three methods of calculating GDP. I don't know. I just explain it best this way. You know, when we talk of final goods and services, we basically saying that yeah, it's easier to calculate GDP right at the end point at which is the goods is waiting on the shelf or services waiting on the shelf to be sold to the customer. So that's called the expenditure method. And how do you calculate the expenditure method? How do you calculate GDP using the expenditure method? You add all household expenditure, which all expenditure by households consumption, C, plus all expenditure by firms, that's investment, all expenditure by the government, and all expenditure by other countries on our output, which is export, right? And then of course we subtract imports because we spending yes, but on who? On other countries' GDPs. So it doesn't count. So basically, the expenditure method of GDP is therefore C plus I plus G plus in brackets X minus Z. Okay. There you go. That's your expenditure method. You know, that's your expenditure method. You got your production method of GDP. Production method of calculating GDP. So I'm still under the topic final goods and services. So how do we do that? Basically, you look at you see everyone who is in the chain of production, or let's call it, distribution channel or something. From manufacturer to the intermediaries in the middle, everybody there adds value to the product, and everyone there is there for a reason. And of course, that value is expressed in their margin, basically in the higher price that is charged every time that the product passes from one pair to the next, up until it gets to the customer. So that's the value-added method, basically. You take the price of the final good and subtract the price of the intermediate good. So what is an intermediate good? It's an unfinished good. So it's a good that's still to be processed into a final good. I don't know if that's so I like the example in the book, they talk there of something, man, what's that? Wheat. Wheat, yes. From a farmer to a miller to a baker and then to a shopkeeper. Okay, so in this case, The farmer plants wheat and then sells it to the miller for 10,000 rands. The miller takes that wheat and processes it into flour and sells it to the baker for 12,500 rands. And the baker buys that wheat and processes it into bread and sells it to the shopkeeper for 18,000 rands. And that shopkeeper takes that bread and makes it available to the final customer in different locations around the country, and beautiful stores that you can walk in and stuff. And for that value add, the retailer charges 21,000. So everyone there has added some value, and everybody there bought an intermediate good and turned it into a final good, all the way until the customer. I don't know if that's making sense. They bought a good that was incomplete and transformed it into something more complete, complete in their terms. Maybe for the next player, it's an intermediate good. So for the farmer, he's done with his part. You know what I mean? The good is complete for the farmer. But for the miller, that's an intermediate good that he or she still needs to take and process into flour. Then it becomes complete for the miller, but serves as an intermediate good for the baker all the way up until the end. So take the value of final goods. So the farmer sells this for 10,000, miller sells this for 12.5, baker sells this for 18,000, shopkeeper sells this for 21,000. That's the value of final goods. Add all of that together, it gives you 61,500 rands. And then subtract the value of intermediate goods. Who received intermediate goods here? Okay, basically, who did? All right. So the farmer 10,000. Okay, the farmer is 0 basically. He had no intermediate goods. He started this from scratch, and then sold it to the miller. So the miller had intermediate goods of 10,000, processed it into farmer goods and sold it for 12.5. While the baker had intermediate goods of 12.5 and sold it and processed it into something else and sold it for 18,000. And the shopkeeper had intermediate goods of 18,000, added value to it and sold it for 21. If you add the value of intermediate goods, it gives you 40,500. So the value of final goods minus the value of intermediate goods gives you GDP using the production method. We call it the value added method, basically. I hope you understand what I'm talking about. Once again, I don't have a board. I could just be writing the stuff down. Yeah, I hope you understand what I'm. Please ask me questions as we go along. If you don't understand something, just shout. Right? Let's look at the third method of calculating GDP, which is the income method. Quite simple, quite straightforward. Just add all the income that is being distributed to the different vectors of production that are involved in production. And you also will obtain the very same value of GDP as you did with the expenditure method and as you did with the what? A value added method. Okay. How is that possible? Because everyone there has a margin. The farmer took that 10,000 and distributed it to pay rent, to pay, what do you call that? Interest to the bank, to pay salaries and wages, and took the leftover money and used it as profit. The miller did the same thing with the 2.5 that they made, the profit, the margin. The baker did the same thing with the 5.5, and the retailer did the same thing with the 3,000. If you add all of that money that has been distributed to the vectors of production, you come up to 21,000 again. So basically what we're saying is this: the production method, income method, and expenditure method is supposed to basically add up to more or less the same thing. GDP is literally calculated based on these three methods, and there will be discrepancy, of course, if you calculate the GDP of South Africa. That's a massive country, but essentially they're supposed to all add up to the same value. Right, are we clear? I was on this point, final goods and services. So back to my definition. Gross domestic product, GDP, is the total value of all final goods and services within a country within a year. So within a country simply means that it's within the borders of the country. So it doesn't matter who, but as long as the production takes place within South Africa, then it's part of South Africa's GDP. Okay, let's keep going. And item within a year. Within a year simply means that what is produced this year then falls under the GDP of this year. Okay. Also here means that there are things that are sold for the first time, and when they are resold, they're not re-recorded again as GDP. I don't know if that makes sense. So let's look at the the real estate market. You know, you sell a house, developer finishes putting the house together and then sells it for the first time. When you sell it for the first time, that is part of GDP. But when it's resold after a couple of years, resold and resold again, even cars, it can't be counted again and again in GDP. This particular point. Cool. Then you got gross. What's the last part of the definition? Gross domestic product. The term gross. We're simply saying that when we say gross, we're not taking into account the fact that there's a lot of, let's say, a massive scale of tear and wear that takes place when a country is actually, generating that output. As we speak right now, I mean, take a moment and go out into the road and just look at the trucks that drive on that road. You can only imagine the extent of damage they do over the years to that road. And you can't blame the trucks. No, the trucks are doing what they're supposed to do. They're growing the economy. What we're simply saying is GDP must account for such. GDP must account for the depreciation of fixed assets of the country's infrastructure that takes place in the process of getting the GDP out there. So we adjust, GDP for the depreciation of infrastructure. We got a name for it. We call it the consumption of fixed capital. So GDP minus the consumption of fixed capital gives us basically NDP, which is net domestic product. Okay, folks. Done with the definition. Let's look at other aspects of GDP, such as measurement of GDP at market prices, basic prices, and factor costs. This is what I always try to say when it comes to this concept. GDP at factor cost is the same as the income method of GDP, and here we simply looking at how much is remunerated to the various factors of production that will be involved in production. Okay, you got GDP at factor cost, and then we start production. There we will experience taxes on production, which increase the value, not the value, but the cost of production, increase the cost of putting that GDP out there, that output, and subsidies do the opposite. They decrease the cost of of generating that output. So if you take your GDP at factor cost, which is what every factor of production is going to take home in the form of remuneration, and you adjust it for taxes on production and subsidies on production, you will then obtain the GDP at basic prices. I like to say GDP at basic prices is when the production has been completed, but it's not at retail level yet. It's just literally at the premises or warehouses of the manufacturer. That is equivalent to the value-added approach to GDP, which is the production method of GDP. And then let's take it to the shelves. Let's take it to pick and pack. Let's take it to the retail, where it's being retailed now to the final customer. There, you will have tax on products, aka VAT. It will increase, the numbers, while subsidies on products will decrease the numbers, to decrease, the actual value of the GDP, which in this case gives us then GDP at market prices. Okay, GDP at market prices is GDP. Just think about it. It's GDP on the shelf, So this basically is the expenditure method of GDP, because the expenditure method of GDP looks at the final price that the consumer pays to obtain. Am I making sense? Please know how to work your way up and work your way down when it comes to GDP at what? Market prices, basic prices, and credit costs. Now, let's look at GDP at constant prices and current prices. GDP at current prices, basically in this case, is GDP including the effect of inflation, while it's GDP at constant prices is when we take out the effect of inflation. You see, when prices go up, but production does not go up in a country, it will look as if the economy grew. Because at the end of the day, it's the same output, but at higher prices. So it looks as if we produced more, but we didn't, because the output actually didn't change. So how about we stop doing that and find a base here, and every year we measure our output, but not at those current prices. We go back to that base here and always measure our output according to the prices of that base here. In South Africa right now, I think they're using 2010. So every year they calculate GDP, they calculate it, but then they express it at 2010 prices. That way we can actually see the change in output from one year to the next, increase or decrease in output, without, distortion, basically, inflation distorts the GDP figures and always makes it look as if the economy is growing, because inflation is always looking upwards. Does that make sense? This is your GDP at constant and current prices. And let's look at GNI. GNI is gross national product or gross national income. So let me be quick with it, which is simply the fact that so with GDP, we focus on everything that's produced within the borders of the country within a year. But with GNI, we say, how about everything that is produced? So it's the total value of all final goods and services produced by the citizens of the country. Okay. So as long as you start African, we want to know what did you produce, and then we got it. So basically, we say it's the measure of the standard of living of the population, because countries can have very high GDPs, but half of that GDP is made by foreign nationals, foreign companies in that country. Does that make sense? Hence we say GNI is a measure of the standard of living of the people of the country. Because now we're focusing on the citizens of the country and how much output have they generated. So in order to obtain GNI, we're going to take GDP. And then from GDP, we're going to subtract all the money that has been paid to foreign individuals in the country, and all the profits that have been made by foreign companies in the country. All right. We call those primary income payments. So we're going to subtract all primary income payments. And we're going to add all primary income receipts, which in this case is all the money, all the money that has been generated by South Africans abroad. We bring it in. Let's bring it in. Let's bring it back to South Africa. Okay. And all the profit that has been generated by who? By companies, South African companies abroad, like MTN and Pick n Pay and South African Brews and the like. So we do that, and what are we doing there? We're basically on our way to obtaining the GNI, the gross national income. Making sense? Please know that formula. Know how to work it backwards as well. Right? Let's talk about expenditure on GDP, which in this case we're saying that who's spending on our GDP? Right? Good. Write that down. Who is spending on our GDP? That's the question that we're asking basically. And in this case, who's spending on our GDP? Well, one, we are spending on our own GDP as households. Firms in the country are spending on the country's GDP, so C plus I. Government spending, whatever government spends on South Africa's GDP as well. So C plus I plus G. Who else is spending on our GDP? So this is gross expenditure on GDP. Who else is spending on South Africa's GDP? it's other countries. Okay, every time we export. Does that make sense? They are spending on our GDP. So, uh, how about when we import? Whose GDP are we spending on? It's not ours. So spread. Z. I don't know if you've seen it there, but if you look at that slide, there is your formula. C plus R plus G plus X minus Z. Because every time we import, we're not spending on our GDP, we're spending on someone else's GDP. So basically, GDP is equal to expenditure on GDP. Okay. They share the same formula. That's what we're saying. Anyway, let's now look at gross domestic expenditure. Here we're looking at all the expenditure within South Africa done within a year. So the expenditure within South Africa within a year will include consumption spending, will include investment spending, will include government spending. It will not include exports because that's other countries spending. And the spending is taking place not in South Africa, by the way, in the rest of the world. So that's not included in gross domestic expenditure. But then what is included is imports, because even though we're spending on other countries' GDPs, but the spending is taking place in South Africa. So why did you say plus Z? Because C includes Z. Basically, when you consume as households, most of us right now, the laptop from which I'm doing this webinar, all the apparatus that I have here in front of me to conduct this webinar, it's probably produced outside South Africa. So when firms invest, they import. When us as households consume, we import. Because we consume imported products as well. Government spending, lots of material that is used to build roads and build the car train. Sorry. Excuse me. And build the car train. It's important material. So as we spend, we import. So that Z, import, is automatically included in C plus R plus G. Is that making sense? Cool, let's keep going and let's go now to the next macroeconomic objective, which is unemployment. Here we talk of how to measure unemployment. You got the strict definition, you got the expanded definition of measuring unemployment. Okay, so the strict definition basically is looking at what do you call that? It's saying in order for you to be unemployed, you must be older than 15 years or older. Right? 2, you must be you must not be employed or have any self-employment either. 3, you must have been available for an interview in the last 7 days. Available for work actually in the last 7 days. And then 4, you must have been extensively looking around for work, for employment in the last 30 days. This is a strict definition. South Africa did use the strict definition a couple of times, but then unemployment rates started seeming to be too low. It wasn't basically, let's say it wasn't a reflection of reality on the ground. Why? Because the strict definition says, point number 4, says you're supposed to have been extensively searching for employment in the last 30 days. And that's not usually the case with many unemployed people. So we now have the expanded definition, which is all first 3 points minus the last point. So you must be 15 years or older, you must not be employed or self-employed, you must have been available for work in the last 7 days, but you don't have to necessarily have been looking for work in the last 30 days in order for you to be considered unemployed. In other words, the expanded definition, it takes out, it adjusts for that desire. People who anxiously desire employment, you don't have to anxiously desire employment and be searching all over the place day in and day out in order for you to be counted as unemployed in South Africa. South Africa is currently using the expanded definition. So the expanded definition basically, if someone is just a couch potato and watching television all day but says they're unemployed, then they're part of the unemployment rate. I don't know if I'm making sense. Let's go to price stability, and here we talk about one instrument only, which is the CPI. Actually, there's also a PPI. I think we'll look at it when we go to the CPI in this case is Consumer Price Index, and it's what we use in order to do to measure inflation in the economy. Please get to know about the consumer price index and the elements of forming or putting together a consumer price index. There are the 5 of them. How do you put together the consumer price index? You put it together by picking out the products and services that will be in the consumer price index, and then you weigh every product and service that is in the basket that you put in the basket now, in terms of importance for the consumer. And then you choose a base year and create a formula, and then start collecting prices every month in order to actually, eventually obtain the inflation. So please do know those elements of the CPI, what the CPI is all about in terms of definition and stuff. And then you've got balance of payment stability. Here, we're basically looking at the relationship between the transactions that take place between South Africa and the rest of the world. Okay. So, in the balance of payments, you got 2 divisions. You got current account and the financial account. The current account takes care of all selling and buying and selling, import and export, right, of goods and services. So basically, the current account takes care of all import and all export. So the buying and selling of goods and services is in the current account. Okay. You can see there the current account. You got exports, you got imports, service receipts, service payments, income receipts, and income payments. All of this is in the current account. And then you have the financial account, which is also part of the balance of payments. The financial account in this case is not focusing on import and export of goods and services, but instead it's focusing on what you call that, money going in and out of the country. So on the purely financial flow, okay, of cash in and out of the country. That's what we're looking at. While the current account is looking at the buy and sell of goods and services between a country and its trading partners. But yeah, we're looking at money flowing into South Africa, money flowing out of South Africa. This is called the financial account. We're not looking at any tangible goods or services. We're looking at purely financial transactions, basically. They're divided into 2. There's foreign direct investment, and there's foreign portfolio investment. Foreign direct investment has to do with money coming into the country with the purpose of actually, building infrastructure. Okay. When a company comes here and builds a factory, that's foreign direct investment, while its foreign portfolio investment has to do with, buying of financial instruments in the country. So there is no physical infrastructure that is built as a sign of the investment by that company, but instead, the company basically purchases financial assets within South Africa, or the sale of financial assets within South Africa. That is portfolio investment. Okay, are we clear? So this is money going in, money going out. You can have when it comes to portfolio investment, you can have a positive or negative figure. In this case, basically, you can have money flowing away from South Africa when people are pulling out and selling their shares and stuff like that. While you can have money coming in when people are actually pushing their money into the country. So portfolio direct investment, they react a lot to what's going on in the economy, like Moody's and S&P, Standard & Poor's, when they downgrade South Africa, for example, it's going to have an impact on such figures. Okay, the balance on the current account and the balance on the financial account come together, so they can either be positive or negative. I mean, if we imported more than we exported, the current account would be in surplus. If we exported more than, it would be in deficit, sorry. If we imported more than we exported, because then it means that money flowed out of the economy than it came in. Remember the withdrawals and injections I was talking about earlier. So the current account can be in deficit or surplus, and the financial account can also be in deficit or surplus. We put those together, it gives us then the balance of payments, the balance on the balance of payments, which can also either be in deficit or in surplus. Movements in the current account and financial account affect the gold and foreign exchange reserves of the country. So, in chapter 6, you're going to learn that the South African um, Reserve Bank is the custodian of all gold and foreign exchange reserves of the country. So they basically keep a fraction of all the gold that we produce here in South Africa, and foreign exchange reserves, in this case foreign currency. So movements in the current account and balance account will always affect our reserves, our foreign exchange reserves, for example, because every time we import, we need foreign currency. Get the foreign currency from where? We don't pick it up. We don't harvest it from the trade. No, we gotta get it from the reserve. Every time we import, every time we export, we bring back foreign currency. And where does it go? To the reserve bank. Where you go and change this foreign currency to obtain rands. So movements in the current and financial accounts always um, result in movements in the country's gold and foreign exchange reserves. I hope you understand that relationship there. Let's look at inequality. Inequality is measured using the Lorenz curve. Okay. Inequality, basically, we're looking at the distribution of income within an economy, within the citizens or the people of the country, how income is distributed there. Look there at page 43. Guys, well, yeah, quite tough to explain this without a board. But there is your Lorenz curve there. Take your time and go through table 2.7 and figure 2.1, and you're able to see how the Lorenz curve is set up. In the exam, they can ask you to set up such a curve, of course. They'll give you a table and ask you to draw the curve, or something like that. Or give you the curve and then ask you to start interpreting information. Okay, but it's an instrument, or it's an instrument that measures inequality or the level of inequality. From the Lorenz curve, we're able to obtain the Gini coefficient, the quartile ratio as well. I'm going to move on for the sake of time. I'm going to move faster now. Chapter 3, 4, 5. Talk about the Keynesian. Okay. We bring in one player at a time. One player at a time. One player at a time. We start very, very simply, and we start there with household and firms. But before that, let's look at what's going on. Remember, we talked about the circular flow of production, income, and spending. So basically, we're saying that everything that is produced in an economy, it generates an income, and that income is spent typically on everything that's been produced. So basically, there will be equilibrium in an economy whereby production is equal to all income generated, and that is equal to all spending that takes place. We say the economy is in equilibrium, hence we talk about the circle of production, income, and spending. I did say spending is the driver of economic activity. So, let's give spending a symbol. We'll call it A. Yeah? A. Aggregate spending. A is therefore equal to Y. Y represents income and production. Okay, so be with me here. Y represents income and production, while A represents spending. Spending is the driver of the economy. So basically, since spending drives the economy and moves the economy forward, Y, which is production and income, they respond to the level of spending that's taking place in the economy. When the spending is high, production must increase, and therefore income increases, right? Because now there is production. In order to match the spending levels. When spending is low, production and income must come down to match the spending levels. So production and income respond to spending, all right? Because spending is the driving force of economic growth. So when spending is more than production, production increases to match the level of spending. When spending is less than production, production comes down to match the level of spending. And, equilibrium is reached where production does equal, and spending does equal production and income. Cool stuff. There are a couple of assumptions that we make when we working with the Keynesian model. Please look at page 51, man. There you got them. Assumptions of our simple Keynesian model and their implications. So the simple Keynesian model is simple as the term says, okay. Number one, we're only looking at households and firms. Number two, we're not looking at the government and we're not looking at the foreign sector. Prices are already given to us, so we don't use this model to determine inflation. Wages are already given to us. We don't use this model to determine activities in the labor market. And the money, stock, and interest rates are also given to us. And spending is the driver of the economy. That's the biggest assumptions there in the Keynesian model. And well, as you can see, we're only looking at households and firms. So let's start by looking at households. When households spend, we call it consumption. Okay? There are a couple of important factors that are important. Oh, yeah, they're important. So there are a couple of factors that are important to note when it comes to consumption spending. Okay, let's start. The first one is autonomous consumption. We're saying that this is consumption that takes place without actual income. It's not positively related to income. Spending in general is positively related to income. Income goes up, spending goes up. So consumption spending is related to income. But he's saying that there is a part of consumption spending that is not related to income, and that is called consumption spending. Does that make sense? Sorry, it's called autonomous spending. Autonomous spending, in this case, basically is called the hand of God. You know, kids, for example. So kids don't generate an income, but not they consume. Some kids actually consume more than adults out there. I'm not talking food. I'm talking about the value of the products that they consume, from clothing to toys and all that kind of stuff. It's more than what some adults don't even dress as good, you know, because they can afford it. So, but kids are not generating an income for this. Someone else is providing for them. So that's autonomous expenditure that's taking place right there. A household autonomous consumption is taking place. It's basically expenditure that is independent of income. And then you have expenditure that is dependent on income. We call it induced expenditure. Are we clear? Which basically is when we get more money, we spend more. Okay. These are things to definitely note. Yeah. So, if you look there, your C1 starts in the air. Can you see that it doesn't start from the 0 point? Anything below that is autonomous expenditure. It's expenditure that is there and not related to the level of income. Okay. So if you look at your x-axis, the horizontal axis, where there is y1 and y2, total income, you can see clearly there that if you draw a straight line from C1, you just draw a straight line, flat line. That's your autonomous expenditure, autonomous consumption. Regardless the movement from y1 to y2, autonomous consumption stays at the same line because it does not respond to it. While it's induced consumption responds to levels of income. Can you see that when there is a rise in income on the vertical axis there is also a rise in consumption spending from C2 to C3. But the rise in consumption spending from C2 to C3 is not proportionate to the rise in income from Y1 to Y2. And the question now is, why is that? That's because we save money. Okay? We save money. As households, we like to save some of the money that we spend. So that actually is referred to as the marginal propensity to consume, which basically means that it measures the extent to which we save money or not save money. You know, the extent to which we consume all the income that we earn and save the rest. It's the marginal propensity to consume. And that's what determines the slope of the curve when it comes to consumption, the induced consumption. Okay? We don't consume everything that we earn, we save some of it. So usually the rise in income from Y1 to Y2 is less than the rise is more than the rise in consumption from C2 to C3 because We don't spend all the money that we earn. We save some of it. Remember, savings is basically a leakage from the circular flow of income, production, and spending. Okay, there you go. That's what I was busy looking at. There you go. All right. So the equation, therefore, for consumption spending is C is equals to autonomous C, which is the C with an angel's cap, and plus CY. CY is how much of income is actually spent. So we talk of the marginal propensity to consume. So the small c represents the marginal propensity to consume, and then y represents all the income. So the higher the marginal propensity to consume, basically it will change the slope of the curve. It will change the slope of the curve. The curve will become steeper. Yes, the higher the marginal propensity to consume, because it simply means we're consuming more from the income that we earn, and we're saving a little. Okay. So that's your formula there. CY basically together is induced consumption, while the C with an angel's cap is what? Autonomous consumption. So consumption in the economy is an addition of autonomous consumption plus induced consumption. Let's look at investment spending. Investment spending in this case is when firms expand. Okay, we also call it capital formation, and it's dependent on the interest rate in the banks. How much interest are the banks charging the companies? Companies use borrowed money in order for them to grow, typically. So in their use of borrowed money, it means they need to pay interest for it. So the price of money, which affects their profitability, therefore is what determines how much investment takes place in the economy. So when the government wants to increase employment and economic activity in the economy, a good way to do so is probably to drop the interest rates from the financial sector, because by dropping those interest rates, firms are encouraged to borrow more money and grow, in essence, and expand. And when they expand, they're basically increasing economic output. So I, which is investment, does not depend on income. Instead, it depends on interest rates and profitability. So this is another autonomous expenditure that's taking place here with investment. Investment is fully autonomous. Fully autonomous. There's no part of it that is linked to income, as you can see the graph there. So let's now look at the Keynesian model. And before that, we have to look at key issues. One is A, like I did say, A represents aggregate spending now, or aggregate demand in the economy, because spending is demand. And A in this particular case is C plus I, which is consumption spending, households, and investment spending by firms. In this case, all right, yes. So we want a point of equilibrium whereby A is equal to Y. So all the spending is equal to all the production income that's been generated. And that's exactly what we're doing here in the Keynesian model. With aggregate spending sitting on what? On the vertical axis, and production and income sitting on the horizontal axis, which is Y. So there you got it. Okay? And the point of equilibrium will be in the middle. Basically, that's where A is equal to Y, which is the purpose of economics. Like I did say at the beginning, the circular flow of production, income, and spending means that it's all equal. Excuse me. In a perfect economy, everything that's produced is sold, and what's produced was sold generates an income that is spent in the economy in order to produce more production. So A is equals to Y is basically your line of equilibrium. Wherever it's intersected, that is the equilibrium point. Wherever it's intersected, another line. And as you can see, if I bring in our simple spending over there, which is A is equals I, so consumption spending, investment spending. Once we bring them in, can you see they intersect the line of equilibrium, which is A is equals to Y, where? At point E. And that's then the economy being at equilibrium in this case, at that level of income and that level of spending, that level of production and income and that level of spending. Anything past that point means that there is more spending than there is production and income. Yeah? Am I getting it wrong? Yes, I am. So anything past that point means that, can you see the A line, aggregate spending, is now below the line of equilibrium. Basically, you have more production than there is spending. So there is excess. And anything below that or before that point E is a point where there is more spending than there is production. Okay? You can see the line there, it's above the line of equilibrium. So that's excess amount. And where it actually intersects the line of equilibrium is the equilibrium. There are no excesses. Alright. Let's talk about the multiplier. This is something I didn't want to talk about. So the multiplier is the reality of the economy. The fact that as money is introduced into the economy, it makes the economy grow. You know, that's why we talk of spending being a hell of a driver here. So the multiplier in this case is the extra money that is generated by the firm. It's every round of economic activity. At every round of economic activity, not by the firm, but there's extra money generated. So if I give you 10 rands right now, I gave you 10 rands. From the bank, let's say, so we have just created money. We made a loan of 10 rands. So 10 rands has just been basically introduced into the economy through that loan I gave you. You are going to take that 10 rands and spend it on something else. Maybe let's say for 8 rands, and take 2 rands and save it in your money box. That 8 rands is now serving as income to someone else, someone who did not have that 8 rands. And they'll take that 8 rands and go and also buy themselves something to somebody who did not have any money, but now they have 5 rands from the 8 rands that was spent. And they're also going to go and do the same. I don't know if you see it, but income has been created quite a number of times already. From the initial 10 rands to 8 rands to 5 rands, that's already 23 rands. That's been created in the economy. People's pockets money they didn't have before, now they have it. Through just the creation of 10 rands at the beginning. 23 rands has not been created. This is a multiplier effect. So just think about it in a very complex organization or industry, or in an economy basically, which is simply the fact that every time that a company invests in the economy, they basically create a multiplier in terms of the amount of cash that is generated for the different individuals in the economy. So once Vodacom invests 5 million rands in the building of Vodafone, what happens is that that 5 million rands pays contractors pay the people go and buy food that we can pay, and all that kind of stuff. So everybody keeps getting paid from this one amount that was introduced into the system initially. It's generating income at every round of economic activity and serving as income to other people. There's an example over there of what happens with the multiplier. Okay, it starts from 12 million rands, and then 7.2 is spent, injected into the economy, of which 4.32 is spent, injected into the economy, of which. And if you look at it cumulatively, you can see how much money you've created. By the fourth round of economy, of economic activity, you've created 26,142,000 of income in the economy for people and participants in the economy, right? Just by injecting 12 million initially. right? Um, you can see what the multiplier effect does. Look at y1 to y2. Okay, so we got A1, which is just consumption, and then let's bring in investment spending, which is getting us now to A2. A2 is A1 plus autonomous spending, the change in autonomous spending. So there is an increase. There's an increase. So A1 is definitely consumption and firms, C plus I. Then A2 is A1 plus changes in particularly I. So firms increase the level of their investment in the economy. They are pushing money into the economy. That moves the economy from one level of activity to another level of activity. But in the process, the multiplier effect kicks in, and more income is created in each round of economic activity as a result of that economic push. And more people are getting money as a result. Hence, the movement from Y1 to Y2 is because of the extra income that's generated at each round of economic activity. Let's go to chapter 4, the government and fiscal policy. Any questions, guys? Alright, at least send me a sign of life to say we are alive. Just so I know that I'm still talking to people here. No questions? Nothing at all? Okay. You now have the basic Keynesian model, simple Keynesian model, where you have your consumption guys, which is households, plus expenditure, which is, firms, and they're all spending, and they form aggregate spending. Now we're going to add the government on that aggregate spending list. Don't forget, when firms get into the economy, that additional investment spending that gets in there has a multiplier effect on it as well. Right? And don't forget the three important parts of consumption spending, which is what? The fact that there's autonomous consumption, there's induced consumption, and there's a smaller increase in consumption compared to an initial increase in income because of the fact that we like to save some of the money. Okay. Three important aspects of it. It's called the consumption function. Okay, then you've got investment. Investment is the same as autonomous income. Investment spending. Yes, this is the government, and the government in this case consists of the following. I'm not going to cover this theory in your book. You guys are going to read through it. I'm just going to focus on, let's look at the Canadian model and let's see what happens there. Okay. There you go. That's your government. Remember this graph from chapter 1, where you got your the fitting in of the government into the economy as a player in the economy. Okay. Please look at fiscal policy. Fiscal policy is controlled by the government, and it involves the following. It involves government spending, taxation, and government borrowing. So government spends on its people, we call it government spending. In order for government to spend on its people, government needs to get money, and to obtain that money through taxation. Where it's not enough, it's going to substantiate that through borrowing. Okay. Borrowing can be in many forms. Go to the IMF and borrow money, or you can actually just sell government bonds, which is attractive investments that bring money to the government, and great returns for the people that buy those government bonds. All right. You guys are going to be reading through all of this. Huh? Alright, let's go. I want us to bring in the government into the Canadian model. Please know everything about taxation, man. Everything about taxation, different types of tax, the qualities of tax, the what you call that, the different types of tax, the quality, the elements of tax. Like tax must be neutral, must be fair, it must be administratively simple, direct and indirect tax, all kinds of stuff. Please get to know it. And your company tax, personal income tax, and value added tax, right? Okay. Let's now bring in the government sector into the Canadian model, okay? So, government, once again, government spending is not influenced by anything if not political decisions. So, income in the country does not, in the economy, does not influence government spending. No. What influences it is politics. Simple as that. A politician can come to power on the basis that, excuse me, they can come to power on the basis that they'll build roads for the people, and it's part of their campaigning. We're going to build roads, we're going to build roads. Or we're going to provide water. Okay. When they get into power, they'll make sure that they actually carry that out. So, government spending then, under this president, will be geared towards, what you call it, to be geared towards the provision of water and sanitation services. So the direction that government spending is going to take is basically a political decision rather than an economic one, or one that links to money, to the level of income in the economy. So you can see there when you now therefore say government spending is autonomous of what? Of income. It's not linked to the level of income, instead it's just a political issue. Yeah. Politicians, they deal with themselves there in terms of how they want to get into power. The bottom line is that when they get in, they got to carry it out, and usually they put pressure on the government budget to carry out their promises that they made. So it's independent of income. You can see it also has what? An angel's cap. Before we bring government into the Canadian model, which I think you can see they were bringing it in, A1 is C plus I and A2 is C plus I plus G. Okay, sounds quite simple. Look at the movement from A1 to A2. You can see the movement there from A1 to A2. The movement from Y1 to Y2 is bigger than the movement from A1 to A2. That's because of the multiplier. Okay. It's not that simple. In order for government to spend, government needs money. Money comes from taxation. Taxation, on the other hand, is linked to income. Government spending is not linked to income. Like I did say, it's a manifestation of political decisions. But taxation is linked to income. In this case, the more people get, the more income people get, the higher their tax rates. Whether you're a company, whether you're whatever, individual, the higher your tax rate. With personal income tax, literally the higher your tax rate. Percentage even changes. But with an income, with company tax, it stays the same, maybe we'll say 30%, but the more money you make is 30% of more money, basically. So there's a positive relationship between income and tax. So we say tax is related to income. In this case, T is equals to TY. Does that make sense? Excuse me. Taxes are a leakage from the economy. So what they do, they pull money out of the economy. Then they become an injection afterwards, because government then spends on us. But anyway, the fact that they're leakage from the economy means that they reduce the multiplier, the size of the multiplier. They reduce the size of the multiplier. So when you put tax into the picture, our disposable income goes down, which means we spend less. So the multiplier goes down. Okay? Okay, there you go. That's a positive relationship there between tax and income. And now, this is how tax affects household. And why we say then it affects the multiplier. Because before tax, consumption was there. C is equal to C with an angel's cap and plus dy. So basically, C is equal to autonomous consumption and induced consumption. Tax comes into the picture. When tax comes into the picture, it reduces our induced consumption because we consume less because our disposable income has gone. So tax is brought into that equation there as 1 minus t, which is basically saying that, so let's say the tax rate is 28%. 1 minus t means 72% left, 0.72 of what? Of induced income. Okay? Because the other 28% or whatever has gone off to the government in the form of tax. And you can see it's a flatter graph. Why is it flatter now? Because there's less consumption, induced consumption spending taking place because of a lower disposable income, lower level of disposable income. Let me try and follow through with your book here. Alright, we looked at tax and the positive relationship between tax and income. And then now we looked at tax and the impact that tax has on your consumption spending. It flattens the consumption curve. Now that we got all of that, we bring in the so it all goes down. Go to page 95 frame, you can see it. We bring in the government sector. Now we bring it in properly. So let's bring it in. When we bring it in, look at your graph there. Look at your graph, you got A1, which is before the government. Yeah? And then let's add the government. So the government comes in, giving us A2. Look at the green line. Okay? Giving us A2. A2 is equal to A2. Yeah? This is before tax. As we're saying, CY. Just to show you that tax has not come in. Now, in order for the government to spend, it needs to tax. So tax, we need to adjust that graph for tax. Is that making sense? We adjust it for tax by making it flat. Right? Which is what I was explaining on this side. There you go. So even though when the government comes, it increases income from Y1 to Y2. The fact that government needs to tax in order to increase income, in order to increase spending, decreases our income. Because tax is a leakage. Okay? It decreases our disposable income, it decreases the multiplier effect, because money is going away from us, making us spend less. And you can see we go from Y2 down to Y3. So there's an increase from Y1 to Y2, then from Y2 down to Y3. Again, due to the tendency of government to tax in order to spend. I did say the government is in charge of monetary policy. Monetary policy in this case, fiscal policy. Fiscal policy involves government spending, taxation, borrowing. Fiscal policy can be expansionary or contractionary. Expansionary fiscal policy is fiscal policy with the aim of growing the economy, stimulating activity in the economy. So expansionary fiscal policy will be an increase in government spending and a decrease in taxation. You decrease taxation, you leave us with higher disposable income, which means we can do what? Buy more. When we buy more, and there's an increase in G, which is government spending, so much more employment is created at the same time. Contractionary monetary fiscal policy is when economic activity is dampening, and the government wants to basically economic activity is very high. The government wants to slow down the economy and just cost of living is very high. When the economy grows, inflation grows, so cost of living becomes very high. It usually accompanies economic growth. So, contractionary fiscal policy, you are slowing down rapid economic growth by slowing activity down. You're going to slow economic activity down by decreasing your government spending and to increasing the tax so that people have less disposable income and spend less. As a result, you slow things down a bit. Of course, it's going to result in unemployment, but hey, like I did say at the beginning, economics is about choices, and choices involve opportunity cost. That essentially is chapter 4. Let's look at the foreign sector quickly, chapter 5. So now we're going to bring the final player into the Keynesian model. Yeah, not easy to go through these 10 chapters in 2 hours. I'm doing the best I can, guys. We'll start off there with why countries trade. Look then, page 103. Please read through that. Okay, you got absolute advantage and comparative advantage. Okay, read through it. To be hard for me to explain it theoretically without drawing things down and writing things down on the board and stuff. So please do read through it. Read through this absolute and comparative advantage. It's very necessary that you understand it. Let's talk about trade policy. Trade policy basically is the same way I was talking about fiscal policy right now. The same way I'm going to talk about monetary policy on chapter 6. We also got trade policy, which is how the government of South Africa basically deals with countries in the rest of the world when it comes to trade. Their policies in regards to that. Instruments of trade policy, we've got a lot of them. We've got import tariffs, import quotas, subsidies, non-tariff barriers, exchange controls, and exchange rate policy. Let's start there with import tariffs. Import tariffs in this case, they are basically when you tax in products as they come in, it's imposed on products that are imported. While it's an import quota, instead of being imposed on products, it's imposed on the term quota there means we're looking at volume basically, and we put restrictions on volume. So with an import tariff, I'll say 5 rands tax on every unit of bottled water that comes into the country. While with an import quota, we say, okay, you can bring this much quantity of bottled water above, and if you go above that quantity, then you're going to pay this much. So that's an import quota. We're trying to control the volume of stuff coming into the country. Subsidies, of course, are the opposite of tariffs. All quotas, subsidies, they make it. Okay, usually the government is going to use subsidies when it's trying to stimulate a particular industry and make that industry more competitive and make it compete better in the international markets. So the textile industry in South Africa, let's give that one an example, is the film industry that was heavily shaken by the Chinese entry into South Africa. So South African government is going to try and stimulate activity in that industry by probably offering subsidies to textile manufacturers in the country that sell or export that material to outside countries. By giving a subsidy to these manufacturers, essentially you are making them sell these products cheaper in the international markets and making them more competitive as a result, and creating growth basically in these companies, and these companies are growing, they employ more. So everybody gets to benefit in the country when a particular industry is nurtured. The growth of it is nurtured by the government. Of course, it gets to be a bit unfair sometimes. Countries complain against each other with the United Nations and stuff and say, no, but giving a company an unfair advantage when you give them subsidies in order for that company to compete better against us. Non-tariff barriers. Here we don't take tariff barriers. Actually, we go non-tariff. Non-tariff in this case, simply saying that we bring up other things like administrative barriers. So we make it very hard for you to pass your products past the border. We say we need to inspect every unit, whatever it is after the back of the truck. Every unit needs to be inspected one by one. You can see what that does. It discourages you from bringing products past the border. So it's not a barrier at your face. It's a non-tariff barrier. It's an indirect, sort of sly, snaky like barrier, and then you have exchange controls, which is when the government, through the Reserve Bank, is controlling the amount of foreign exchange, or foreign currency that is available for trade. And then you have exchange rate policy, which is a policy as to the level of exchange rate that a country needs to like, where do we want the rand to be against the dollar? The government has its wishes, remember, when the dollar or when the rand appreciates or depreciates against the dollar, you got winners and you got losers at the same time, right? In the number of exporters and importers, usually, and speculators and tourists, tourism. For example, when you got a weaker rand, more international tourists are drawn towards South Africa. So it's good for a weak rand is good for the tourism industry in South Africa. Can you imagine that? So, such kind of things. A weak rand would be very bad for importers, because they therefore need to buy the same dollar at a very, very, very expensive price. So a weak rand discourages imports, but then encourages exports, encourages tourism, and vice versa. So exchange controls and exchange rate policy are things that are very much closely guarded and controlled by, government and government institutions. Although, of course, South Africa has a floating currency, which the currency, the state of the rand is controlled by the markets, the market forces of demand and supply. Let's look at exchange rates. Yes. It's the price of one currency in terms of another. Perfect definition. I could never come up with a better definition. The price of one currency in terms of another. Right now we're looking at rands and dollars. So it's the price of dollars in terms of rand. Okay. When we say $1 is 12, we're saying in order for you to buy $1, you need to provide 12. The same way I'm going to sell this bottled water on my shop. I say it's 10 rands. Give me 10 rands, I give you the bottled water. The same thing. You give me 12 rands, I give you $1. I'm selling the dollar at 12 rands. I think we all understand that part when I say it's the price of one currency. And exchange rates or currencies are traded in the foreign exchange market. Right? It does not have a physical location. It's just a market. Wherever we trade currencies, that becomes a market. Usually it's virtual given the state of technology today. Now, you have to look at the graphs yourselves in terms of the foreign exchange market. But at least let's look at what affects the demand for dollars and what affects the supply for dollars. Once again, what did I say? I said the South African exchange rate is, or the South African rand currency is a floating currency. It's determined by the forces of demand and supply. The government doesn't say that, look, we want the rent, we want to stop, and they literally have it that way. The government can have its wishes, but if the markets decide otherwise, nothing we can do about it. Understand? Excuse me. So the forces of demand and supply set the exchange rate. So if there are more, if there's a higher supply of dollars, it means the dollar is being dumped in the country. The dollar loses value, the rand appreciates. And if there's a higher supply of rand, it means everyone is buying the dollar and leaving rands behind. The rand is going to depreciate against the dollar. And the dollar, being something quite important now because everyone is demanding it, is to appreciate in value. So this is demand and supply of dollars. But now let's actually look at the factors one by one. Let's start with the demand for dollars. The demand for dollars is how much dollars are being demanded in the system at any one given time. Like I did say, when something is being demanded, something becomes important, which means its value goes. What influences demand for dollars? One, importers. When we import, we need to pay for our imports in the currency of the country that we didn't, usually dollars. So importers lead to higher imports lead to a higher demand for dollars, and then you have people leaving South Africa and going to the United States to visit. In this case, they need dollars in order to go there. Also, South African investors that are putting their funds in the United States of America, they need dollars, of course, to invest in America. Whether it's foreign direct investment or foreign portfolio investment, they need dollars to invest in America. So basically, they will influence demand for dollars. There was three. Let's look at South African investors selling their assets from America. So let's say something's up in America, there's a hurricane, it's killing infrastructure. So what do people do? South Africans pull their money out of America for safety's sake. When they're doing that, what does that do? It affects when we pulling out. Okay, that affects supply. So sorry, let's do this again. When American investors are pulling out of the South African market. So like right now, South Africa, it's going to be downgraded again, blah, 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 blah. What does that do? It discourages investment into South Africa, and current investors in South Africa start to do what? Pull out their money. When they're doing that, they want those rands to be turned into dollars. So they're demanding dollars so they can go back home. So that's basically, these are the factors that affect the demand for dollars. So the first one was demand for dollars, right? Importers, South African tourists in America, South African investors in America, and American investors pulling out of South Africa. The last one is speculators. Speculators are people in the forex markets, who are always taking advantage of a particular future event or whatever it is in order to make a killing. There you go. This is the demand. Now let's look at your sources of supply for dollars. More or less the opposite of your demand point. The first one, of course, being American tourists coming to South Africa. When they come into South Africa, they come with dollars, so the supply dollars. American investors investing in South Africa. They do that. What do? They come with dollars, they exchange the dollars into rands so they can invest in South Africa. So they are suppliers of the dollar. Another one is American, our exporters. South African exporters. So our exporters, they export, they get paid in dollars, they come here, dump them for the rand. And then my last point that I had made a mistake with, remember that one? Which is South African investors pulling their money out of America. We usually basically come back with these dollars and dump them to obtain the rand. So, and speculators. So all of these will affect the supply of dollars. So let's look at what's at play here. The first point is the fact that the demand for dollars, when the price for dollars goes up, as in dollars become more expensive, the demand for dollars goes down. It becomes unattractive to travel to America for holiday. It becomes unattractive to invest in America because the dollar is just too expensive to buy. And then the other way around for supply, when the price of the dollar goes up, more of it is supply. So if the dollar becomes stronger, American tourists coming in here are at an advantage. So what do you call that? American investors coming to South Africa are at an advantage. So everyone is happy because the dollar is more expensive and they basically have more muscle for their money. So they come and flood the market with dollars, which then starts to work out the other scenario. Okay. So there's a positive relationship between the price of dollars and the supply of dollars. There's a negative relationship between the price of dollars and the demand for dollars. Look there to figure 5.2, page 111. You can see the supply moving from your left to right, upwards, and downwards. This demand moving from your left to your right, sloping downward. And you can see there the middle is where SS and DD they meet, giving us equilibrium in the exchange market, and that equilibrium is there for the exchange rate. Please look at page 112, study that, the changes in demand and the changes in supply of dollars. So once you have the equilibrium in the foreign exchange market, like I'm saying, you now have the exchange rate. The equilibrium point is the exchange rate. Once you have the exchange rate, you can now focus on what? On movements in demand and supply, for when supply of dollars moves, or the supply, or the demand of dollars moves, it affects the exchange rate as a result. So let's look at the first one there. But I need you to study through this on your own. Look at the first one there. There's a decrease in the supply of dollars. So the supply of dollars moves from SS to S1, page 113. That decrease in the supply of dollars, you will see, pushes the price of dollars up and makes the dollar appreciate. When the dollar appreciates, demand goes down. sending us from 8 to 10 million. $10 billion traded daily. Okay. So it's all about applying the rules here. It's all about applying the rules. Imagine if S1 was to the right. So for some reason, there's a higher supply of dollars in the market. So what supply is dollars in the market? There's an international event in South Africa, tourists come through with dollars. So there's a higher supply of dollars in the market moving us from SS to S1 on the right. What's going to happen with that higher supply? It's going to intercept demand, of course, at a lower point than E. Too much supply of the dollar leads to a higher price of the dollar. Sorry, a lower price of the dollar. Think about bread. Bread is dumped in the markets everywhere right now. What's going to happen to the value of bread? It's going to go down. So that's the same thing there. Too much supply of the dollar makes the dollar price of the dollar go down. So the dollar depreciates against the rand. And when it depreciates, what happens to the quantity traded? It appreciates. Because we are, as demanders, we're responding to that movement of supply initially, and we like a low price of the dollar, so we're going to demand more of the dollar. It's cheaper to obtain. Guys, understand your graphs. Also, understand your managed plotting. Something called managed plotting. Please do understand it as well. Figure 117. Now let's take the foreign sector and put it in the Canadian model as well. Okay. Foreign sector, let's bring it into the Canadian model. The foreign sector is your imports and your exports. Okay? The foreign sector is your imports and your exports. So let's bring this into the Canadian model. I'm done with the foreign exchange market. I hope we understood that as much of it as we possibly could. Now let's bring in this final piece of the puzzle into the Canadian model. All right. Afterwards, I'll skip chapter 6, so you can walk through chapter 6, and I'll jump to 7, which is another one of those graphs as well. And the rest of the chapters, you guys can actually work through them. Yeah, I'll try and wrap this up by 2 o'clock. So at least we got 25 more minutes to go. Let's fit in the foreign sector into the Canadian model, but we've got to break it down into 2 because the foreign sector comes what? As a mixture of imports and exports. So imports, they send money out of the economy. So imports are leakage, yes, okay, whatever. What drives imports? Well, first of all, the same things that drive consumption, because remember, as we consume, what do? We import. So as we consume, we import. As we consume, we import. So imports will have autonomous imports and induced imports. I don't know if that's making sense. Your baby is dressed up in Chinese clothes as we speak, and is probably playing around with toys from Malaysia, Indonesia, or Thailand. They like making toys. So we import. As we consume, we import. So the same way you have autonomous consumption, which is consumption taking place without income, it means there is importing taking place without income as well. So there is autonomous imports, then there is induced imports. Here we talk of the marginal propensity to import instead of the marginal propensity to consume, which is how much of our income is dedicated to imported goods. Excuse me. So that would be a marginal propensity to import. So That's your my. I want to look at your formula there on this slide. So z is therefore equals to autonomous z plus my, which is what? Induced input. Now let's also look at, okay, so let's focus on the part where inputs are linked to income, my. As we earn more, we consume more. So as we consume more, automatically we import more. That's basically the premise here. And we talk then of marginal propensity to import, which basically is how much of our income, as it keeps going up, is dedicated towards inputs. So it goes without saying that at very low levels of income, inputs will be so much less. You only have probably the autonomous part. And as income goes up, inputs become more. We import more and more and more and more. Okay, keep that in mind. Let's look at exports. Exports, on the other hand, are not driven by income. Why? What drives them? Well, it's the income of our trading partners, not income in our country. Yeah, I don't know if this makes sense. We're not the ones buying our own exports, it's other countries. If there's war in Syria, then Syria stops buying South African exports unless South African exports are gone. In this case, of which if we're just selling normal products, they won't afford to buy those products anymore. So basically, exports are driven by conditions in the rest of the world. They're not driven by income. So exports are therefore autonomous of income. There they are, x is equals to x with an angel's cap. Okay. Now that we've got that out of the way, this is where it all goes down. Okay, this is where it all goes down. Let's focus on this. Let's start. Okay, oh, by the way, South Africa, we export more than we import. So in South Africa, there's more money coming in than going out when it comes to our current account. You with me so far? We export more than we import, so more money coming in than going out. Which means our net X, so we talk of something called net exports, X minus Z, which is exports minus imports, will always give a positive number in South Africa, basically, because the more exports than imports. So we talk of net exports. So net exports will always, okay, net exports can be positive. Net exports can actually be negative, which means there's more imports than exports. So countries that import more than they export have a negative net export. Countries that export more than they import have a positive net export. That net export, okay, we're not looking at it yet. So let's start on graph A, where we're looking at exports by themselves and imports by themselves. Okay? Exports are autonomous. Look at the straight line there. There you go. Autonomous exports. And then imports have an autonomous components to them. There they are. You can see it there. Can you see the import line doesn't start from 0, né? Okay, cool. That's the autonomous input, component of it. And then it starts wherever it starts and starts growing. Okay, what's on the horizontal axis is Y, it's income. Then on the vertical axis is exports and imports, but we're looking at them individually here. You can see that we're looking at them individually. You've got your autonomous graph for exports, and then you've got the graph for imports that looks like the graph for consumption, right? Because there's an autonomous component and an induced component to it. Okay, there you go. And it's stretching there. Where it meets there. Okay. Well, that's the point at which basically you see, I'll tell you. So okay, there they are. As income goes up, I'm still on A, graph A. As income goes up, what happens? Our induced imports go up. Can you see that? Initially, they are less than exports, which means we have a negative net exports. No, with a positive net exports. Our exports are more than our imports at lower levels of income. At any point before YB, can you see that? But as income keeps growing, our imports keep growing and meet exports and then surpass exports. Because our income is growing, so as our income is growing, we keep importing more and more and more and more. Now we're starting to import more than we export, so we have a negative net exports. Okay, cool. Well, graph B is looking at it from that angle. It's saying net exports. Okay, can you see there, X minus Z. X minus Z is positive as long as income is sort of less. Because when income is less, we're not importing as much. So exports are more than imports. But as income grows, we start importing more, and our imports surpass our exports, which means more money is coming up than coming in. That's why now we're having a negative net export. That's why it goes below the line of zero. Can you see that? It becomes negative as income grows. Okay, as income grows. YB in this case is just representing the point at which our exports and imports are equal. Okay. Now we bring it into the Keynesian model. Keynesian model, you're going to have a skeleton over there where there's, you see the line of equilibrium. I think it's orange like in color. The line of equilibrium, there it is. AY. All right, where are we? Initially, we are at A, where A is equals to C plus I plus G. So basically, life's good at that point. Now let us introduce the foreign sector. Now pay attention to the horizontal axis once again, where there is Y. Always remember that income is growing there from zero, going on and on and on. It's growing, and as it grows, what happens? Our net exports moves from positive to what? To negative. As our income grows, we move from injection into the economy to leakage from the economy. So that's why is it the red lines, the red line there that comes in, which is now the foreign sector coming in. It starts there being above, it's like an addition to the economy, right? Can you see that? You can see there the space between the two represents X minus Z there. It's positive. But because income is at lower levels, then as income keeps going up, it gets in, comes in, intersects with the blue line, and just literally goes below it, and that's the point at which it actually intersects with our line of equilibrium there. It's going below it because there's more leakage than injection into the economy because of higher levels of income, which means we're importing more than we're exporting. Essentially, that's the addition of the foreign sector into the economy. Okay, to the Keynesian model. Cool stuff, and that's the picture that you're trying to paint here. And that's the Keynesian model. Now let's use the next 15 minutes to just brush through chapter 7. Sorry, I'm trying to go through the slides. Where are the slides? My slides just disappeared. Okay. Yes. Okay. I think I was going too fast. Sorry about that. Too fast. Sorry guys, I'm trying to navigate to my chapter 7 slide. Okay, chapter 7 is the ADAS model. Let me just be talking about it while this thing does its thing. Chapter 7 is, we're now looking at another framework. So we're moving from the Keynesian model and we're moving to what? To the ADAS framework. Basically, it's a model, like the Keynesian model. We're just looking at things from a different perspective, that's all. So, excuse me, page 154. The first thing we're going to do is drop the assumptions that we're using. There we go. So the assumptions that we made for the Keynesian model, where we said prices are given, wages are given, interest rates are given. We're only looking at, well, in the simple Keynesian model, we're only looking at households and stuff like that. Okay. Yeah. Prices are variable. That's the first assumption. Prices, wages, and interest rates are variable. In other words, we can use these models to measure these things, to study inflation. We can use it to actually look at, the behavior of the labor market, and to look at the behavior of the monetary sector and monetary policy. And spending is not the driver of the economy. Extremely important factor. Spending is not the driver of the economy. Instead, economic activity is determined by the interaction of demand and supply. The interaction between demand and supply, they will meet in the middle, and where they meet, we call that equilibrium. And that is the level of economic activity, that is the point of equilibrium. Okay. All right, quickly, let's go. Of course, let's. There you go. Can you see that? Yes, right there. Demand curve. Okay, let's look at demand. What is demand? Right? So the ADAS model. AD stands for aggregate demand. AS stands for aggregate supply. So ADAS model. Aggregate demand, aggregate supply model. Aggregate demand, we're saying that, well, everything that's demanded in the economy. And who demands in the economy? Back to the Keynesian model. It's households, it's firms, it's the government sector, and the foreign sector. Okay. All of these, they basically affect demand in the economy. Whenever we spend, we demand. Okay. Minus imports, of course, because that's not in the economy. It's not our output. Okay. We're spending on other people's output. So anything basically that's is spending in the economy will be demand, and an increase in any of those things is going to then shift the demand curve to the right. A decrease in any of that is going to shift it to the left. Now, why is the demand curve a negative slope? Stretching from well, it's negative, basically. Okay, let me explain why that is the story. Where is the demand curve? Yeah. Demand curve. I want you to see a demand curve. Or maybe let's just look in the book then. But it's fine. Okay, demand is a negative slope. Okay, in other words, when price goes up, demand goes down. When price goes down, demand goes up. So it's a negative slope. There's a negative relationship between price and demand. So why is it negative? You need to be able to answer that. There are many reasons why, and there are 1, 2, 3 basically reasons why, and you need to be able to answer those. I'm just going to go through one, okay, which is the wealth effect. Right? When prices go up in the economy, when prices go up, when there's inflation, all right, when there's inflation and prices go up, people basically get to feel poor because our money becomes worth less. Okay, the purchasing power of our money seems to sort of go down. So in this case, when there's inflation, uh, what you do is that you start to spend less. Okay, start to just watch what you spend. So prices going up and demand is going down. That's essentially us trying to explain why exactly is there a negative relationship between what? Between prices and what do you call it? Demand in the economy. Okay. So the first one there is the wealth effect, which is also called the real balance effect, which is simply saying that when prices go up, or let's say when prices go down, for example, our money can buy more. So because our money can buy more, we start to feel rich, and we start to feel like we're wealthy, basically, and we spend more. And when we start to spend, so when we spend more, demand is going up because prices are going up. Okay. There are two other reasons that these study those two other purposes of the interest rate effect and the international trade effect. Why exactly is it a negative slope? Okay. Now let's look at the shifting of the demand curve. What will shift the demand curve to the right and what will shift the demand curve to the left? Okay. Any increase in consumption spending, investment spending, higher exports, South Africa exporting more products to the outside world, government spending, any increase in these is going to lead also a decrease in tax, decrease in interest rates. Any of these factors will lead to what? To the demand curve shifting to the right because it means there's money. So people are going to spend, people are spending. That's why it's shifting to the right. And the opposite is shifting to the left. So when tax rises and there's an increase in tax, what do? We start to spend less, demand shifts to the left. When there's an increase in interest rates, we borrow less from the banks, demand shifts to the left. When, decrease in consumption spending, decrease in government spending, decrease in investment spending will shift the demand curve to the left. Okay, great stuff. Please look at table 7.1 and you can actually see there what affects the demand curve. Okay, now let's look at the supply curve. Supply curve, on the other hand, which is the aggregate supply curve, AS model, we are looking at the fact that, it is supply conditions in the country. Right? Supply conditions in the country. There's a positive relationship between the price level in the country and the supply conditions in the country. So when the price is high, supply also tends to go up. When the price is low, supply also tends to go down. Okay, so maybe let's look at price going up. Oh, excuse me. When price goes up, okay, I'm trying to explain why is there a positive relationship between a higher price and higher supply. Why does supply go higher every time that the price goes higher? So, if the price goes up, for example, an employee starts to get to feel broke, right? Essentially, because your wages that you're earning are now buying less because cost of living is going up. On the other hand, your employer is supposed to do what? To adjust your wage, basically. So in the short run, he's not going to adjust your wage. In the long run, he is going to adjust your wage. He's going to strike, he's going to adjust your wage. Well, not in the long run. Right now, we're concerned about the short run. The short run is not going to adjust it, which means basically for him or her, the cost of production becomes cheaper, goes down, because prices are higher, and he's not adjusting your wages for the higher price, which means your real wages have gone down. Basically, that's what it means. So he, as your employer, is going to be induced to supply more because the cost of production is essentially going down for your employer as long as they are not adjusting your wages for the higher price out there in the market of goods and services. So that's why then a higher price induces suppliers to supply more, as long as, in the short run, basically. Okay, in the long run, workers are going to strike and wages will be adjusted, and blah, blah, blah. So that's an explanation of the slope of the supply curve. Why is it positive? And then the position of the supply curve. What will make the supply curve shift to the right? Well, look there on table 7.2 on page 161. You are able to see there what will make the supply curve shift to the right. Quite interesting factors. I mean, an increase in productivity will make the supply shift to the right because people are doing more for less. People are using the same resources to produce more things. That's an increase in productivity. You're working more in the same space of time that you allocated every day for work. Good weather conditions, they lead to higher supply. Yes, good weather conditions mean there's more agricultural produce and all that kind of stuff, and then the economy moves forward. Factors of production, the price of the factors of production. When the price of the factors of production goes down, for example, the wages example I just gave you now, it leads to a shift in what? Supply. Right. More supply. When the price of the goods that we import, South Africa imports a lot of machines. We don't have a lot of machines. So when the price of those goods that we import goes down, our cost of production becomes cheaper. We supply more. Oil is another one. Petrol. When the price of petrol goes down, business is easier. We supply more. The opposite of any of those factors lead to the shift of the supply curve to the left. Here. This is what you need to know here. And then the rest of the chapter sort of falls into place when you know what shifts supply to the right, what shifts supply to the left. Okay? What shifts demand to the right, what shifts demand to the left. Also, what moves us along the slope of the demand curve? It's price. Okay? Remember, I was explaining to you when price goes up, people demand more or less of something. Same thing with price and supply. So price moves us along the slope, while it's the other conditions, they shift the curve. All right. And of course, what's the effect of a shifting curve? When demand shifts to the right, for example, when demand shifts to the right, prices go up. Okay. If you look there at your graph, look at figure 7.4 on page 162. Demand shifts to the right, maybe because, I don't know, lowering of taxes or interest rates in the economy. Demand shifts to the right. What happens in the economy? There is inflation. So whenever there is more demand, there is inflation. But at the same time, there is more production, income, and hence employment. So P there represents inflation. Hence, we say it's the ADAS model, we actually can measure inflation using it. And then Y represents employment, production, and income. Remember, the circular flow of production, income, and spending. Okay. Y represents production. Production automatically talks about employment. So there you go. Demand shifts to the right. What's going to happen? Prices are going to go up in the economy, which means there will be some inflation, but at the same time, the economy is going to expand through higher production and higher employment. Okay. If demand shifts to the left, it's going to have an opposite effect. Let's look at a situation where supply shifts to the left, for example, due to a drought, bad weather conditions, for example. Supply shifts to the left. When supply shifts to the left, look at page 164. What happens there? Figure 7.5. Price goes up. Yeah? So there's inflation due to a drought. And at the same time, Y shifts to the left. I mean, there's a decrease from Y0 to Y1. There's a decrease there. So which means there is less production, less employment, less income. And there's inflation. This is called stagflation. Okay. Basically a very polite term for hell. Okay, because you're having a high cost of living and high employment at the same time. It's also called a supply shock. Okay. So these are the things we get into look at. The ADS model for me is actually so interesting and explains the economy from a much better perspective than does the Keynesian model. But of course, it depends the angle from which you look at each other. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to stop here. I hope you found this helpful. Nobody talks to me during this whole entire time. but I'm hoping that's because you're listening attentively. Um, Please work through the rest of this chapter, that's for sure, but I've worked through the skeleton of it, important parts of it. Work through, what's in expansionary monetary and fiscal policy. How does it affect the ADAS model? It simply shifts demand to the right. What's contractionary monetary and fiscal policy? Okay, it will shift demand to the left. Okay, yeah. How does it affect the ADAS model? And study through chapter 8, 9, 10, and chapter 6. All right. Um, the Phillips curve, cost push inflation, demand pull inflation, and the theory that comes with the rest. There's just a lot of theory there, more than the graphs. And the business cycles, of course, as well. Thank you, guys. I hope you found this helpful, and I wish you all the best for your exams. Kill this. Please work with past papers as much as you can as well, so that you can get an idea of exactly how IMM is going to go about examining you here, and the seriousness of the question. Okay. Thank you, guys. Study well. Enjoy. I'll call it a wrap here. Any questions, please shoot quickly. All right. I see nobody is typing, and I take it that silence means everything is